Stephen, we're live whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah. Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome to,
I wasn't sure why streaming just there. I was trying to do the SpongeBob voice. Fuck, I
oh,
gotta work
okay,
up
yeah,
to lunch
well,
past me
probably
do
not.
it again.
No, I mean, Ian, if you want to just introduce the show, I mean, I didn't mean to take everything over.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry. All right, here we go. We're leaving this in 3, 2, 1. There once were two cowboys that were alone on the trail, and down that trail they want to sleep with another male, so they're having butt
wait a
sex.
minute, wait a minute.
Cowboy butt sex. Sort of
Okay.
be.
Well, we're all right. On second thought, I'm taking over
Yeah, spoiler
now.
alert for The Power of the Dog, everybody.
Yes. Well, howdy, howdy, everyone. You couldn't, if you couldn't tell, we're doing a cowboy episode tonight, which we were supposed to do. we were supposed to
Yeehaw!
do. We were supposed to do this last week. Unfortunately, there were extenuating circumstances. I don't even know if that's the right word. Look,
Yeah, I,
these
I
two.
I just checked out of all three. Go ahead.
Yeah, these two maple syrup communists did not want to pay to watch Terror on the Prairie, but ironically, they did
Fine now.
the Pirates of the Caribbean episode. The Pirates
Well, hey,
episode.
I already have the Disney Plus subscription.
There you go.
Hey, the pirates are
Um,
free
You know,
men, man.
I love the capitalist mouse.
yeah.
You're
Well,
sounding a
anyway,
little bit fuzzy, by the way, Devon.
Oh, I might now.
so I this trilogy came about just to kind of give us an introduction here, and I do have a few announcements before we get into the episode.
Do it.
But this episode was kind of birthed out of the idea of something Quentin Tarantino had said in an interview when he was promoting the Hateful Eight, and it's actually it's funny that we're not reviewing the Hateful Eight as a part of this, but the Hateful Eight was released. Gosh, I think it was 2015. So this was well before things really went downhill. But, you
Well,
know,
depending on your
only,
perspective.
well, only a year later, things went pretty wrong. But one thing that Tarantino said in that interview was um, that the Western as a film genre has always been one of the few things that you can almost put your finger on and tell what the pulse of America is like. The way that the Western film, when you see a modern day Western, whatever time you're in, that's released for its time, you can almost tell what America is going through their Western films. And I thought that was a fascinating
Mm-hmm.
thought. And at the time, even the Hateful Eight was actually boycotted by police groups, which, is a whole thing. But I think that's fascinating. And it also calls to mind this interview that I saw Trevor Noah do recently about the Dave Chappelle incident. And I know I'm kind of all over the place. I promise this is going to come together, but Trevor Noah was interviewed, and
Together.
they were trying to get him to like say something about Dave Chappelle, and he was like, "Well, the problem with Dave Chappelle is that half of America thinks that what he's saying is completely out of line and completely politically incorrect, and the other half is like, oh my God, he's saying exactly what we want to say. We're sick of this political correctness." And so I thought, well, what better way to illustrate, this sort of like cultural divide that we're now feeling? And I'm sure there's kind of ripples of this in Canada, maybe not. Um, but there's probably ripples of that, and kind of explore that through the lens of Western films. And yeah, I thought that would be an interesting episode. So tonight, we're going to be looking at Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. We're going to be looking at Power of the Dog. And we're going to be looking at Terror on the Prairie, which is a new production from the Daily Wire, which, if that's not a...
and theoretically.
Yay.
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect illustration of what we're going for.
It's all about how the West was a whack.
Yeah, something like that. But with that out of the way, couple of quick announcements. So if you're a member of the Discord server, you'll know that we do fan selected episodes, and we're pretty much booked through the host episodes and through our fan selected episodes through October. But if you're following along, we're doing something that is a little bit different from what we normally do. And this is going to be our poll selected episodes in October. It's going to be Horror from a Hat. And so I've asked everyone who's a member, if you're listening to this on Twitch, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to us, join the Discord, send a DM to the moderators, to me, to the administrators, whatever, and send me 2 horror movies. And they don't have to be related. They don't have to be, they just have to be 2 things that you want us to review. It doesn't matter. It could be a slasher. It could be art house. It could be something really cheesy and terrible that you want us to suffer through. Just send those 2 to me. And at the end of, I believe it's going to be the 1st of September, we're going to do a live drawing, a random number generator. And we're going to have 2 episodes comprised completely out of 3 choices randomly selected by this list. And it's going to be Horror from a Hat. That's
I have one question. Whose hat is it?
It's a good question. Hopefully, a hat that gives
if
us...
if it's not Rose's hat from Rose the Hat from Doctor Sleep, then I don't want it.
Well, I mean, even in the first week of doing this, we already have like 22 horror films that I've been sent. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for helping me out with this. This is going to be super fun. I can already tell you that there's everything on here from Hellraiser to Final Destination to Birdemic. I mean, it's going to be a blast. So please.
Birdemic 2 and The Happening.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. But thank you again so much. And keep sending those my way.
Hell yeah. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
That's pretty much what I have to say. Who would like to introduce the Wild Bunch? I'll just open the floor.
Well, I just want to test my microphone for a second because apparently we've been having audio issues.
Yeah,
but
sorry,
Ian, how do I sound? Do I sound like
you still sound low crackly.
I sound like I'm a crackling fireplace. I don't know what that's about.
Well, I tell you what, I'll go ahead and introduce the Wild Bunch. This is a 1969 film. A gritty Western classic.
Nice.
Directed. Yeah, 69. Nice. This is
just
directed.
You can possibly test my microphones.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I mean, do you want me to keep going? What are you doing here?
Just hang on one sec. Sorry, Steven.
Okay. I'm sure Ian will fix this in post.
Nope. Don't count on it. I'm sorry.
Fixing in post is a lie.
Yep.
Just like every cut is a lie. How do I sound?
You're better.
You're better.
Better-ish.
We are never, ever, ever
okay, now you're terrible.
Now you're terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's better for now. Sorry about that, Devon. Oh wait, no, he's gonna come back.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to the listeners at home.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Dealing with our technical difficulties.
I'll
Czechoslovakia.
That's much better. You're perfect.
Hey, there we go.
We did it.
So the Wild Bunch. It is a 1969 nice American epic Western film directed by Sam Peckinpah. This film stars William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Warren Oates. My gosh, Bo Hopkins, may he rest in peace.
God rest his
And,
soul.
this was also coming at a time where America was kind of at a place of division. This was, the same year that we put a man on the moon. This was the same year that, the Sharon Tate murders had happened. And, yeah, there's a lot of, tensions that were rising. And I think, the good, the bad, and the ugly had really shown how gritty and how violent the West could be a year earlier. But that was an Italian film, and Sam
If only
Peckinpah.
if only they murdered Sharon Tate on the moon, then it
If,
would then all would have
wow,
been well. I'm
wow,
kidding.
yeah, probably too soon.
Oh, right. Is it? I mean, it's been a while.
It's been a
I'm sorry. I'm terrible. Go on.
but this, this film was coming right at, if you guys have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that kind of like the old West is dying, and the guys who are like, from that 50s kind of like Clint Eastwood mindset. And now it's like a bunch of hippie dudes and androgynous kind of guys. And like, this was like the first American Western that really dealt with the West as it was, gritty and violent. And I mean, this is a pretty brutal film even today. It's very stylized, but it's very graphic. And in regards to how stylized it is, it was actually very innovative. This was a film that has gone on to be selected for the Library of Congress, the National Film Registry, was ranked 80th in the American Film Institute's 100 Best American Films, and it was also ranked the 69th most thrilling film.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, I'm not.
It's so fitting. Wow.
Holy shit.
We'll just say, winner nominated for Best Original Screenplay, nominated for Best Original Score at the Academy Award. It won the National Society of Film Critics Awards Best Cinematography. Yeah, it's pretty widely considered one of the greatest films of all time. What did you guys think of it?
Oh, I didn't.
Okay. We're off to a strong start.
Well,
but no, I was making a joke earlier, so I actually really like the symbolism of some of the opening shots where it shows these kids playing with scorpions and red ants, and I made a joke that the red ants are symbolic of the communist Red Scare, and scorpions may be symbolic of America's pride and prowess. I may not be that far off considering the year it came out.
Now, I was reading about that actually, and I read that the actor who played the Mexican in the movie, apparently, like, he would used to do that as a kid. Like, they would quite literally just poke insects into other insects and basically, like, torture them and watch them eat each other. And he actually gave that idea for something for the kids to do, because I think the director was just like, okay, like, what's something kids do? Like, he was asking around the actors, and that actor said, well, here's something like I used to do as a kid. Like, it would make sense that in Western times, like, they'd probably find like really dumb shit like that to entertain themselves, and that's why it's in the movie. And I just want to say this movie is kind of like how I felt about Johnny Got His Gun, where it's very innovative for the time. It was very ambitious for the time, and there's a lot I appreciated from a filmmaking perspective and acting perspective. I can't really connect with it beyond that. I've mentioned in my review that it's all guts and no heart, which is kind of what I mentioned in my review, and I just couldn't connect with it as much as it wanted me to.
Well, there is a lot of violence in here, but I don't think the violence was necessarily the point of it. Like, it is also,
I get that.
Like, people argue that this was like trying to be more realistic, but it is very over the top violence as well. Like, it's quite stylized.
It's very goofy,
but it is showing a degree of grit that you hadn't seen in westerns prior to this. So I understand its place in film history, and the editing especially was important. And I like the potential symbolism of that opening stuff with the scorpions and the ants. But other than that, I liked that Willie Mote was in this because I liked him in Network, and that's a movie we need to talk about.
Yes.
No, definitely.
Yeah. I'm wondering what else like there is about this film. I just trying just trying to wrap my head around it a little bit,
Well,
but
I think one of the things that we can talk about is just how morally gray all of these characters are, and
Well,
I mean, again, it's something that we almost take for granted now,
mm,
But this was 1969. This was way before the Hollywood New Wave. This was before 71 was like A Clockwork Orange. 71 was A French Connection, and those films came a couple of years after. And so for this film to come out as a Western when really the violent and gritty westerns that we know now from this time frame were coming out of Italy or Europe, and so I think this was like mind blowing back then, just to
oh, for
have
sure.
these unapologetically awful people as the stars of the
Well,
show.
oh yeah.
I
I mean,
agree with you on that, but I think my problem
they do a
is,
lot of fucked
yeah.
up stuff. Like
Oh
Oh, they
yeah.
absolutely do. Yeah.
I like all the scenes where after all this carnage happens and there's all these dead bodies lying around, the one guy's like, "Help me pick the gold out of his teeth." Yeah.
Yeah, jeez. And they're just like, I
No,
know which gun I want. It's like, hey, you two idiots, don't over there. I forget what it's like. Oh, he shot him first. No, I shot him. No, I shot him first. They're literally
You
just
liar,
yeah,
you black
no,
yeah,
liar. You
yeah,
shouldn't talk to me like
like
that.
that. But I
no. I
think
mean,
there's something you're forgetting though is that Sergio Leone's westerns came out before this movie did, and that also had
oh
like
no,
very morally great characters. I would argue it handled morally great characters better. I think there's a lot about this morality of this movie that's a little bit confusing to me because I feel like these characters are like irredeemable, like incredibly unlikable. But I feel like the movie is trying to get me to sympathize with them, and it just doesn't work. And it made me realize that The Good and Bad, the Ugly, like it never goes that route. It never goes that route of being like, oh, these characters, it's like all these guys were just like having a good time, and we're gonna have a sad montage at the end of the movie to make you miss them. Like it never goes that route. It's like, yeah, these characters are pieces of shit, and you're just gonna watch them try to kill each other. I feel like it was more
I do
self-aware.
feel like that a lot of people watching this might miss the morality of it entirely. They'll just kind of see it as like the grand slam western action that it is. Like I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that don't think too much about anything. Just being excited that
well, I mean, and I will argue. I mean, I'm not ignoring Sergio Leone. I did say like a lot of the films like this before this film were coming out of Italy and Europe. I mean, but this was the first, I think, American film to try and do this. And I mean, for what they're doing, both as far as that and the film techniques that they're really mastering here. I mean, the editing and the fast paced. Like the cinematography is gorgeous in this
I
film,
agree.
and it's so revolutionary in what it's doing.
Yeah, I agree
I
with
mean,
that. Like the techniques,
just on a technical level, yeah.
On a technical level, yeah, I agree. Like the film is top notch, and something we didn't talk about. Um, the music. The music is
Oh yeah.
incredible. It's probably the best part about the movie. Um,
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and that's very true of like Sergio Leone too. I mean, with those grand sweeping scores, and this kind of kept that tradition, which I thought was great.
yeah, like it like tells a story with the music, but I didn't feel like the film was always earning the emotions of the soundtrack. Like there's parts where it's like playing this triumphant music for these characters that we've already established are like terrible and unlikable, and I feel like the music is just trying to get us to sympathize with them. But I think it really came to a head and it really made me realize the problem when, like, towards the end of the movie, there's a huge like part of the conflict is deciding either or not they should take their like Mexican friend and get him out of there and stop him from being tortured. But it's like, I don't give a shit about this guy. Like, why do I care about this character?
No.
Fucking kill him. Like, I don't
Well,
care
I mean,
about him.
I think it's almost like an honor among thieves in a way, and I mean, I will say that kind of that was almost, mind blowing for me today in 2022, looking at this thing with fresh eyes. That like this whole thing is like these guys who have established like a brotherhood with this one character, and like the emotional crux of the film is they're gonna go have to save their buddy who we've already seen shoot and kill a woman point
Yeah,
blank.
that's
And
just it. Like
and I
it's like
mean,
it's insisting
And
on
he's the
stuff.
more redeemable character, which is the crazy part.
Well,
It's like,
actually,
no,
I
and
think the old man was the most redeemable character. I think everyone else
I
was
oh,
mean,
true. Or
but
the
I
like
bank
will
teller that got
say,
thrown around. Like, this movie made me sympathize with the bank teller. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
honestly, yeah.
It's
no,
like the
and I
bank
mean,
teller, he did nothing wrong.
no,
I
and
never
I mean,
thought I'd say this sentence.
no, I mean, I get what you guys are saying, but I mean, for me, I mean, like, I just the balls that it would take to attempt a movie like this, especially of its time, but like
But
even today,
Sergio
I
Leone
mean,
movies came before
I
it.
think it would take at least two.
yeah, I mean, I feel, I feel like I feel like Tarantino, has a hard time doing this sort of thing where it's like these are the most disgusting, degenerate characters in the world, and we're following them, and I think this was definitely an influence on the Hateful Eight
But
for
the
sure.
Hateful Eight knew they were terrible characters. This
I
movie
feel like
doesn't know
this
that.
film.
I
I
don't know if I
feel like
agree.
it does.
I think
I
it
feel like it
does, but
does.
it's also just like, oh, but deep down they're like brothers, They have this deep past, and this one guy has a connection with another guy that with a literal splash flashback, like the warble effect flashback, and I'm gonna be honest, I laughed my ass off at that. I was like,
I mean,
come
those,
on.
okay, like, I understand how, like, huge, big deal the editing was at the time, but, like, watching some of those sequences now with, like, the repeated dialogue and the warble effect and all those things is pretty funny. Because I think
Yeah,
you just
no.
see it parodied so many times.
Yeah,
You know?
that's
No,
true.
and I mean we talked about that with like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and The Matrix, and so many other films that like it feels dated
But the good, the
today.
bad, and the ugly feels less dated than this movie, despite coming
No,
out a
I
year
mean,
earlier.
but what I'm saying is, it's like, is it actually dated, or is it just that it's been a part of our cultural zeitgeist for so long that it feels familiar?
Well, I have
You know
problems
what I
with it
mean?
beyond just being dated, because this film has a bad habit of something I hate, where it's like they'll have the flashback that explains a piece of information, then they'll cut back, and they'll have the character explain the piece of information. It's like, okay, have the flashback or have the character explain the information. Don't have both. Like, I don't need my handheld this much. Like, that drove me
Well,
nuts. The film kept doing that. I was like, come on.
Unless you're a Hondo horror, then I want my handheld the whole way.
I mean, that's
no,
different.
I mean,
But
man, I don't know. I must have gotten something different out of this from you guys, because I absolutely
fair.
loved it. I felt like
I think because we're not American, we're not getting that American, like, hard-on experience you're
well,
like,
yeah.
didn't we give the
You
good and
know,
bad and the ugly like perfect tens though?
I'd
This is
almost
true.
put it. I mean, it's not quite the same level as Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but I think it's definitely up there. I mean, I think this is
see
deserving
that.
of.
Yeah.
I think it's deserving of the praise that it's gotten. I feel like it's extremely well made. It feels relevant, today. I mean, I disagree that it's dated, because I
Oh.
mean, even like what I was saying, I mean, I don't know a film today that could try to do something like having like the emotional core of the story is this guy who shoots a woman point blank. Like, that is, to me, that's
But
unheard of.
Tarantino
Like,
could do something like that. The Hateful Eight did stuff like that all the time, and it didn't try to make it seem like its unlikable characters were
well,
likable.
but
And
I
I
mean,
don't
like
mind morally ambiguous characters at all. I don't want to make it seem like I hate those kind of characters. They're some of my favorites. However, it
right,
bugs me
no,
when a
but
film is insisting otherwise.
no, and I mean, I think they're
Insisting upon
definitely.
itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think they're definitely morally ambiguous, but I'd also
I don't
argue
know.
that they're interesting, which is really what I would want.
I really don't agree with that either. I thought they were
Really?
very...
Okay.
So remember what you said about Ghostbusters and how like it's a cast of characters, but certain characters get more development than others. Like, really,
Yes,
the
I
only
have.
characters that get development in this, it's not even that interesting to me personally, is the main character, Ernest Borgnine, and the Mexican. The brothers are just the dickhead brothers. Like, they have no depth in them whatsoever.
I
They're
mean,
so
I would
one-dimensional.
I would
And I'm
argue.
gonna be honest, they look so similar, and they're basically written the same way that I got them mixed up on several occasions. I
All the
actually
I
got them
would.
characters
mixed
are
up.
equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I
Now
could
you're
not tell the
talking.
characters apart. It's like, you can't just write two people in a you can't just write two white guys with beards and brown hair the same way. I'm gonna get them mixed up.
What are you? Are you being racist right now? Are you profiling?
Maybe, I don't care. Like, it's that you don't do that
Okay,
in a
I
writing.
will. I will argue that the sheriff, the old man sheriff, who is
He was my
I
favorite.
for-
I'll give you that.
yeah, I feel like I feel like he had a lot of development. I thought he.
He's
I
the only
thought
one
by
with any
the.
like any emotional resonance, because you kind of feel bad about what happened to his son, even though we have no development of his relationship with his son whatsoever.
Well, I
but
mean,
there's something there at least.
Well, and I mean, I think by the end, when the old man, comes up on the horse, I mean, it
Yeah, that was my
it
favorite
feels.
scene.
No, it feels like there's something there. Like, this guy has seen so much. This is the end of the road, and like, this is the journey he's had to take. And I mean, I don't know. That worked for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, I really love this film. So
That's
I mean,
fair. And there's
it's
a lot I appreciate
definitely.
about it. Like, technically,
Oh,
it's
for sure.
perfect. Like, the editing is
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
the visuals are great. I like a lot of the ideas of the symbolism and how it's kind of like a meta commentary on violence. Like, you could also interpret the kids playing with the scorpions being like how audience members just enjoy seeing characters getting tortured and
Oh, for
mutilated.
sure. Yeah.
And there's
That's
tons of scenes like that where
yeah,
like
that's
kids
good.
are like laughing at people hurting each other, or witnessing these violent crimes, but they aren't doing anything about it. They're just silent observers. Stuff like that is
This
interesting.
is
I
the
just wish I
American
resonated
audience
with
in a
it.
nutshell.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and Tarantino loves
And
that
this.
kind of stuff for sure.
Oh,
So I
for
can see
sure. Yeah.
there were so many scenes in this movie where I'm just like, I get why Tarantino likes this. Like, the slow building
Yeah.
tension. The final
Yeah.
shootout had major Django Unchained vibes. Like, holy shit.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Like, there's
And I
literally a
actually-
scene where, like, there's like a Predator moment where the guy is just like, ah, on the turret. But in Django Unchained, that fit because that movie is really goofy and over the top. But in this movie, it's like, it feels a little weird. The guy getting shot 8 times and still going on a machine gun. Like, it's a little goofy.
I will say I loved the part where just before the final shootout, there's like a scene where one guy gets shot and everything just stops. And it's like
Yeah.
they just look at each other like, oh shit, now it's about to happen.
Yeah, that's more
And there's
realistic. I really like that.
No, there's this awkward like laughter between the men, and it's terrifying. And I thought that was incredible. Like, I loved that sequence.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, some of the tension
no,
building was like absolutely masterful, but the problem is it's involved with characters I just don't care about, like,
And
at
I
all.
mean, I think that's I think that's fair. I don't know that you're necessarily supposed to.
I don't know if the film knows that.
I feel like it does.
It literally ends with a sad montage. Come on.
I mean, well, and Peckinpah was, he was a mad lad. I mean, Saturday Night Live even parodied him, like, trying to direct a romantic comedy, and he just slaps the woman around.
I remember that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, so, you kind of have to wonder where Peckinpah was coming from.
Yeah, he was
Something like
an
that.
interesting guy, to say the least. I
Oh,
still need
for
to see
sure.
more of his movies, and I don't hate this film, I just wish I resonated with it a little bit more. But I can understand why it's a classic. I get why people love it. It just
Yeah.
didn't quite, resonate
I
with me.
would-
Very much in the
I-
same way
I would-
Johnny Got His Gun didn't.
I would recommend
sorry.
Straw Dogs, and I would recommend The Getaway.
Would you
I
recommend
I
the
do
Straw
I do
Dogs
have
remake?
to see Straw Dogs. I do have to see Sam Peckinpah's other film. This is I think my first Sam Peckinpah film, so I am getting a flavor, even if I didn't take too much from it. But there was one dialogue exchange after they had their first botched heist, where they were talking about the people being too prideful and not admitting when they're wrong, uh, which I think is a very good humble pie for this podcast, for us to pick from, But no, I do really like that dialogue exchange. I do think that there was some well-written stuff there, so I
Well,
appreciated that.
it's also worth noting that Bo Hopkins, who plays the character in the beginning who is licking the teacher in the shootout, the
Oh
hostage.
yeah.
So that was actually
Yeah,
unscripted.
remind me.
What?
That was they didn't the the woman who played the teacher was actually very uncomfortable and nervous because she was actually a teacher in real life. So the director was like, just try and do something to kind of rattle her up a little bit for this next scene. And he just
Christ.
I wonder if that was deliberately commented on. And oh, you haven't seen Terminator, have you?
I have
Terminator
not
2.
yet. No, I have
What?
not.
Oh,
It's
I'm not
on
gonna
my
say
to
anything other
watch
than you.
list. I know. I feel bad
Stop the
enough as
podcast.
is.
With this, we
Yeah.
are no longer worthy of being on this podcast. Get out of here.
No, I've heard that before, definitely.
God damn. Come on.
Well, I did see Alien, I mean, I saw a couple of things thanks to this podcast. So yes, I'm on it. But regardless, what
Irregardless.
Oh God.
what are our ratings, boys? I'm gonna start out. You know what? I don't even care. This is a classic. It's a masterpiece. 10.
All right. I feel like it's appropriate to give it a 6.9.
Ooh,
Nice.
And that's like my honest opinion too. I'm not just doing that for the memes. I feel like that's where I'm at with this movie. It could go higher, it could go lower. We'll see how it holds up.
God damn it! That's what I was gonna give it.
Yay!
I'll give it a 7.
Oh.
really?
Like it.
Okay.
Well, why don't you also give it a 6.9?
Okay.
I'm feeling left
Because
out over
it
here.
came out in
Yay!
69?
No, it came out 69. Come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
So
I thought
you're
you
giving
said it came out 79. I was like, come on.
It's the most appropriate rating for it.
Yeah.
You know what?
Damn.
I do have to create a disclaimer. So, Stephen, you're out in Arkansas. You're not very far from Texas. We're up in Canada. So I think
Yeah, no,
geologically speaking, maybe we just don't connect to the Old West just because it's not part of our, geography up here.
I think
I
that's
don't know.
fair. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption. I mean, yeah.
Where
there is...
I resonate with a lot of Canadian films because like, hey, I've been there before, or
Oh no, definitely. And I mean, my
and you're like, what the fuck is this shit?
What's
when-
up
when
with
I
all
showed
this
it to you.
Monopoly money?
Yeah.
It's
So-
my grandfather was like a huge fan of like John Wayne westerns, and so I feel like this is like the peak of some of the stuff that I was exposed to early as a kid, and so maybe that's like nostalgia tinted. But I mean, this is a classic. I don't know.
For sure.
I think it's deserving of the praise as one of the top of its genre. And if you're not into westerns as a genre, it might not resonate with you the same.
Fair enough.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's a good
it is a classic, and I'm glad I've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not a great entree. It's a great side dish for Western fans.
I mean, I don't know, but
So Devin,
moving on.
do you want to introduce the Power of the Dog or Terror on the Prairie? Your choice.
I'll do Power of the Dog.
Yeah,
All
Power
right.
of the Dog.
Okay, Devin, take it away. Spoilers.
Power of the Dog is a movie that's on Netflix, and I watched it. I was not prepared for this whatsoever, so you're getting what you're getting here. Let me just pull up a synopsis here, just so I sound like I know what I'm talking
This
about.
is great.
So,
Oh
yeah,
boy.
Power of the Dog is a movie from Jane Campion. I had seen one film of her prior to this, which was called The Piano. I remember really enjoying that film. And I know that's a film Steven still needs to see, and we're gonna make him see it. Don't worry.
I'm going to watch Terminator first. I'm not gonna lie. Go ahead.
Fair enough. So, Power of the Dog is a 2021 revisionist Western psychological drama. written and directed by Jane Campion. It's based off of a novel from Thomas Savage from 1967. So it actually predates the Wild Bunch, the concept of this film, which is interesting to me. Stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, and Jesse Plemons, who apparently Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst are in a relationship in real life, and I'm not jealous at all.
Womp womp.
Who are you more jealous of? What are you trying to say here?
I'm gonna leave that up for viewers to decide.
Yay.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I was more aroused by Spider-Man 2 or Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding.
I feel you.
I just want to get him. I'm not
It's
even
Breaking
going.
Bad,
I don't
man.
even know where I'm going with this.
Are you trying to... No, I'm not
Nah.
going
It's just go on.
So this is set in Montana. Apparently, it's not the only film that we have tonight that also is set in Montana. If I'm correct.
Yes.
I'm probably
Yep.
not.
No,
Shot mostly in Otago. This film was up for Oscars, and I think it won something. What was it?
Best director.
It won Best Director, which is really interesting.
And best cinematography also.
It did?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
No, I think Dune got Best
Yeah,
Cinematography,
Dune got best
actually.
cinematography.
Dune got a lot of great stuff.
I don't know.
No,
I'm gonna
It did.
Google this
It did.
now.
I was
Okay.
there. I think everyone was distracted by the slap when it came to the Oscars season. So actually remembering who won and who didn't win is like
It's pretty tricky.
yeah. But yeah, this film has a pretty cryptic plot. I'm struggling to remember what it even was. I'm wondering if someone else can pick up the reins from me.
Okay.
I
This is
think
first going
that's
on long enough.
perfect that it's forgettable. I think that's a good segue.
Well, it's you know the individual parts of the plot may have slipped through the cracks in my mind, but I do think the impact of the film still said something. I think it was the more interesting film of the three. I'll say that
Really?
much.
All right.
Okay.
So this is my second time watching this movie, and first time I saw it in theaters, and I loved it. Second time has not held up as well. I don't hate it for the same reason Stephen hates it, but I think apparently it's very accurate to the book. And if that's the case, that was a mistake. Because there's watching it a second time, I noticed there was a lot of elements that may have been better in the book, but just doesn't really make any sense in the context of a movie.
Translate on film.
Like it feels kind of unfinished. Like there's certain elements that don't really come together too well. There's a plot twist where it's kind of the same issue of The Usual Suspects. So where from a purely writing perspective it works, but the more you kind of think about it, the more you think it kind of just robs some of the more emotional moments in the movie. And I don't know, it didn't quite work for me this time around. The pacing was a little bit frustrating to put up with. There's still elements I love.
Well,
It is gorgeously shot, well acted for the most part, in my opinion. Despite the very distracting accent from Benedict Cumberbatch, who I normally love, but he does
yeah.
not do a good cowboy accent, unfortunately. He's a great actor, but this wasn't it. He's been
Well,
much better in other movies.
The one image that I remember from this entire thing is him just running out butt ass naked toward the kid for looking at him.
Yeah, like that was
Which is
intentionally funny.
hysterical to me. Like
Yeah.
that was fucking hilarious. Because like if he was genuinely upset that he caught him just like bathing naked, that he would just bark. But no, he runs full frontal towards him,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, this is fucking hysterical.
Yeah, and there's a few unintentionally funny moments like that. Like the hula hooping scene. That was so weird and out there, and it feels like a comedy beat. Like the scene where Coley Smith McPhee gets kind of like made fun of and he goes out and hula hoops. It's like, where did that come from? The way they cut to it feels like a comedy beat.
No, by the way, if we're talking about historical accuracy, hula hoops had not been invented yet.
Oh, I don't care about historical accuracy.
I'm just saying, like, they literally included that scene, and I agree, it was kind of comical.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I watched this film the first time and I hated it. I watched it the second time and I disliked it, but for different reasons. And so I'm kind of on the fence. I'm kind of mixed about it now.
What do you like about it? Let's start with that.
Okay, that's a good point. Well, I mean, I like the cinematography. I think
Yeah.
a good majority of the performances are good. I thought Kirsten Dunst was pretty good. I mean, towards the climax of the film, she kind of puts on this like Elizabeth Taylor in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf,
Yeah,
where
it's
she's
kind
just
of
like,
like very drunk, like typical drunk acting.
yeah, and it's a little bit
Yeah,
cringe,
a
a little
little
bit.
bit.
And I mean, no, and I mean, I almost feel like that does a disservice to
What
Elizabeth
you saying
Taylor because
about my wife?
yeah, no, and I mean, I love Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I think that film earns some of its more like campy
Well, it's
moments.
also an older
I
movie,
don't
so it fits.
necessarily, I don't necessarily know that this film does. Jesse Plemons is passable.
He's really
I
good.
feel
I
like
thought
he's decent.
he's one of
I
the
wish
best.
that I wish his character had more
I agree.
character.
Well,
You
I wish he
know?
was in the movie more because some of the best moments. Because I kind of have a mixed relationship with my brother, so all of the moments where, like, he kind of has to put up with his brother and kind of fix his bullshit, but there's also a sign like the brothers do care about each other deep down despite their problems together. I'm like, okay, like this is something I really resonate with. This is something
No,
interesting. It's kind of like a sisters brothers kind of relationship, and it's fascinating to watch.
oh
But that
yeah, no,
only makes up a small part of the movie, unfortunately.
yeah, I agree with that, and I actually did love the Sisters Brothers too.
Mm.
Um, so I think like cinematography, there's a lot of technical elements. There's a lot that's really good about this.
The
I
music.
think yeah, definitely the score as well. Um, I think there's a couple of things here that really just, and I think it comes down to the plot. I think it comes down to kind of what you're talking about from a writing standpoint. It's like I'm watching this film, and you know, Benedict Cumberbatch is very over the top. He's almost like
Yeah. Which he's a
it
very over
feels
the
like
top
he's.
actor, which fits for like Shakespeare or The Imitation Game when with
I
where he
feel
plays a very
like
erratic
he's.
character, but
I
here
know,
like
but
yeah, it doesn't work.
I feel like he's trying to do There Will Be Blood, and I feel like he's
I
the
don't think he's
only
trying to
one
do There Will Be
trying to be
Blood.
in
I
that
think he's
movie.
just trying to be like sadistic and evil, which he could
Yeah,
do,
and it.
but for like a more over the top character like Smog. Like there's points where he
Yeah,
was yelling in this movie. I'm like, oh, that just sounds like Smog. Like that doesn't really fit like a cowboy
well,
pissy
there's
brother.
like one. There's one scene in particular where he's yelling at Jesse Plemons, and
Was
he
it
says
about
something like,
the belts? Was it about the straps?
"Yes, yes," and
Yeah,
he's like,
I laughed
"Not
at that.
well." Like,
Not
oh my god,
well. I think that was kind
oh
of meant to
my
be funny
god.
though. I think that was kind of meant to be funny.
Um,
A little bit. I'll give
but
him that one.
I think the film. Okay, here's like my main point of contention, and I want to be clear. Like, I know this whole podcast episode is about like political division through the lens of the Old West. I'm not really that political myself. Like, I'm not registered to vote. I post a lot of memes about like communism sucking and stuff like that. But but I'm not like a right wing troll or anything.
No, you do it
I'm
for fun.
able to. No, no, I'm able to engage with art that doesn't fit my own worldview. Like, I mean, for example, I mean, one of my favorite films of all time is Bertolucci's The Conformist, which is a beautiful
I
film
need to see that still.
about a closeted gay man during Mussolini's rise to power in fascist Italy. And so I feel like this film is like it's trying to do something like that, and it's trying to say, okay, this is like toxic masculinity. This is like the problem that there's male dominated hierarchy, and I don't know that it ever like fully commits to being men bad, but
I'll give him that. Yeah.
it's almost on the precipice of that,
At
and
times, yeah.
it's trying to say, okay, like all men perpetuate this problem. It's a societal inherited sort of thing, and so we're supposed to sympathize with Kirsten Dunst, who is under the pressure of these societal expectations. And, she's getting under the thumb of these really toxic men. And I feel like if the film wanted to be about that, and the film wanted to be about like her finding her identity and breaking free of that system, then I feel like that's one film.
Stephen,
You know what I
that's the piano. That's basically the
No,
piano.
no.
It is
I mean,
that
I get
story,
that, but what?
and it's focused on that, and that's why it works so much better.
And she literally plays a piano in this too, and that's why it also felt so familiar. And
Yeah.
I do
No, and I mean,
think that Piano is a better film.
It's a
I will
much
say
better
that.
no,
version
and I
of
mean,
this movie.
I'd be willing to watch the piano, but what I'm saying with this film though is like it's trying to do that, but then it removes her agency.
Yeah, it
It's
removes her
saying,
from the
okay,
story.
yes, she's oppressed by all these men, but now her son, who is a man, has to save her.
Yeah.
And it kind of turns into this like queer thing where it's like, okay, he's gay, but he's like the real man because he's comfortable living with himself, but he has to save her. So you're undercutting the feminist angle, but at the same time, like this is a gay love story where the guy has to kill the only man he's ever like fell in love with that is like him. So it's not quite a feminist story, but it's not quite a gay story either.
Yeah, well,
and I don't know what it's about. I don't know what I'm supposed to
It's
glean
somewhere in
from this.
between.
Yeah, it tries to
And
do too much at once, which is why, again, I feel like it would have been better in the book, where you have time to flesh out all of these ideas, but in a 2-hour movie, it doesn't really work.
And I don't think that I would be opposed to this as much if it would just pick one thing and like commit to
Or
it.
just be like a TV series. Have like one, arc of the season be about Jesse Plemons and Benedict Cumberbatch. Have another arc of the season be about Kirsten Dunst kind of being oppressed, and have the last arc be about Cody Smith-McPhee and his weird relationship with Benedict Cumberbatch. Just flesh out the ideas a bit more. But
Well,
they didn't
and I
do
mean
that.
that's another thing that I kind of took issue with is like Jesse Plemons, he's portrayed as this character who is. Hold on just a second. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's portrayed as a character who is, like Jesse Plemons is portrayed as this character who is very cowardly and sort of, like
Doesn't
he
fit
doesn't
the
have a lot
standards
of
of his brother.
agency either. But he's not reprimanded as a part of the greater like feminist angle either. Like he's never called into question. He essentially is in like part of the movie, and then towards the end, he's like not in the middle, and then towards the end he just has his problem solved for him. It's not like he learns anything. He never stands up to
He
his
never
brother.
grows as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. It wanted to be too much at once. And I can't stress enough just how much I wanted this to be a TV series, just fleshing out the ideas more. And some people say oh, the film is too long. I don't know if I agree. I don't think it's long enough. Really. But
I think
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like in that spot for, with Dune for me, where it's like, I don't know if this is too long or not long enough.
Well,
like they
Dune
need
at least is getting another part that kind of like fleshes out the first part. At least there's something to look forward to there.
We're still waiting for part 2. That's the thing. Like part 1 is just sort of preamble in the grand scheme of things. I think you'd actually get a kick out of David Lynch's version of it, Stephen.
Oh, for
it's
sure,
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but it's so funny.
I'm saying in general, though, yeah, this film did not quite work for me.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable perspective on it, and I kind of agree. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually agree with you for once on a movie, because I had those exact problems. For a moment, I want to turn to the plot twist and the problems I had with that plot twist. Do you guys know what the Walking Dead effect is?
I'm
familiar with what the Walking Dead is.
All right, so
the Walking Dead effect.
So the Walking Dead effect, and I think Adam mentioned this in his review of season 2 of The Walking Dead, is anytime, because the later seasons are so bad, anytime they're gonna kill off a character, they'll give that character an emotional moment or a heart to heart conveniently before killing them off. Usually for characters that didn't have any moments like that before, just so you feel sad about them dying in the next scene. It's really cheap, it's really manipulative, and really stupid. This film basically does that with Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, there's like a heart-to-heart scene he has with Cody Smith McPhee, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, it didn't really feel earned to me. It kind of feels like it's there so you feel bad about him dying in the next scene. But the film didn't earn that. The film didn't establish that effectively to me. Like, it
No,
just felt
his-
like he was kind of an asshole until that, just a major asshole until that scene. But a good director would have like an arc. A good director, and there's like bits of that. There's bits where like he's just kind of like, holy crap, like this kid was like stronger than I thought he was, which is some like good acting, but it's not enough to make his death feel like emotionally gratifying. But it pulls like the Walking Dead effect, and I didn't notice that the first time watching it, but the second time watching it, I was like, wow, this is so like cheap and manipulative.
I mean, it is worth noting, just kind of as an aside, Sam Elliott hated this movie, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, he had to come out and
he
say,
said
it's not because I'm homophobic, I just didn't like the movie.
which is extra funny because when he was talking about why he didn't like it, he was like, "Look at these fucking cowboys dressed as Chippendales."
Oh yeah, that was kind of funny.
Funny. It makes Brokeback Mountain feel like a much more authentic take on the Western, which
Well,
It
and I
might
mean,
be.
it is.
Yeah.
It's also kind of funny that like Sam Elliott vehemently hated this film, and like John Wayne actually vehemently hated The Wild Bunch.
History repeats itself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But and
I
you
don't
know,
know.
Brokeback Mountain, you know, say what you want, but at least it knew what it was. It was just like a gay
Exactly.
romance between two characters with two women in their lives that get in the way of that. That's it. Like, it didn't try to be about 3 different stories at once. It was about one. It was consistent with that one story and knew what it wanted to be, and it stuck to it. So I'll give it points for that. I haven't seen it in a while, but actually,
And
I
I
remember
mean,
it being pretty
I
good.
had my, I had my issues with Brokeback Mountain, not as a homophobe, but I mean, it's
Just as a
not a
movie, right?
perfect story.
But at
But
least
I
it's a
do.
consistent story, is what I'm
I
saying.
think it's more focused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Devin, what are you thinking about Power of the Dog?
it's all right.
Yeah, do you feel like it deserved 12 Oscar nominations, Devin?
Not really.
No.
Not
Well,
really.
my
Okay.
biggest
You know,
problem.
but then again, I'm just as checked out of this movie as I am the Academy in general. You know, so
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
much. I don't hold much. I mean, I was excited to see that Dune won as many awards as it did, because awesome.
Yeah.
But other than that, like,
Meh.
I only feel like I check out the Oscars out of obligation because I'm doing film review podcast.
You just
You know what
love
I
the
mean?
shitstorms.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do know what
But
you mean.
here's something that bugs me. You know how directors at Oscars will win their best director for a film that arguably they shouldn't have won for, but they only win it because they should have won many times before that, and the Academy is finally realizing it. That's basically what happened with
That.
Jane Campion. Yeah, that's basically what happened here. She should have won for The Piano, but she won for Power of the Dog. And that just feels like the Academy just playing catch up. Like, this film does not deserve the Best Director award compared to, The Piano, which is a masterpiece.
We also have the benefit of hindsight as well, and I don't know if we'll glean much
Well,
from this
I
in
think-
hindsight in 2032.
Yeah, but The
2037,
Piano will hold
however
up
long it
much better, I
takes us.
think.
But
I mean, I'll also say, I mean, they arguably did that with Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like he should have won for Django. He should have won for Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, we'll give
mean,
it to him for The Revenant.
He's really good in The
award?
Revenant, but
I never won an award before.
Some people argue that was what happened with Martin
No,
Scorsese. Like, they think he should have
that
won
was-
for Taxi Driver or Goodfellas, but he won for The Departed. But that's still a great movie.
I mean, yeah. I mean, John Wayne got a career Oscar. Who was the other one? I mean,
John Wayne doesn't
arguably,
deserve an Oscar.
arguably, I think Shape of Water was a career Oscar.
I
for
100%
that.
agree, and I like that movie. I agree.
I feel like Guillermo del Toro should have won for something like
Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth, maybe even Crimson Peak, but Shape of Water, I don't know.
Honestly, Crimson Peak was a lot better than what than what it's given credit for.
Yeah.
It's honestly really
Absolutely,
good.
The fact
I
that that
agree.
movie was not nominated for Best Production Design makes me want to choke the Academy. Speaking of choking the
They
Academy, let's
did.
asphyxiate this movie and give it a score.
Yes, I'll I'll open the floor. I feel tempted to give this a 5 out of 10, but I'm gonna deduct a point because it's so long. I feel
Yeah,
like the pacing kind of.
pacing wore
I don't.
thin on the second watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
6. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. It's beautifully shot, masterfully scored, very well acted, and there's some good scenes in there, at least from like a like a pacing perspective and an acting perspective. There was something here, like there's some ideas that are great, and if they were fleshed out more, even better. But yeah, I don't know why I loved it the first time I watched it. Really, like it just wore thin on me on the second watch. I can only imagine it goes down from there. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
This didn't hold up for me. I was hoping I could just yell at you and tell you why you're wrong about this movie, but no, I'm with
Ah.
you on this one this time.
It's well, as we've learned from the Wild Bunch, it's good to know and admit when you're wrong. 6.9 just for the jokes.
Yay! He did it. He said the thing.
He said the thing.
Simply because of the image of Benedict Cumberbatch running toward the kid while completely naked is fucking hysterical.
It's so funny, and the hula hoop shot was hilarious. The Native Americans coming out of nowhere and conveniently asking for leather strips, just leather strips, nothing else, just leather strips, just so Benedict Cumberbatch can die. It's the most contrived plot convenience ever. I laughed pretty hard at that too.
Speaking of natives coming out of the middle of nowhere for only one scene and not it connecting to anything else, we have another movie to talk about.
Yay!
Oh boy.
Stephen,
great
you wanna?
segue. Yes,
Yeah.
We're on the Prairie. This is a 2022 American Western film.
That's set
Directed
to destroy Hollywood. Sorry.
No.
Directed by Michael Polish, the former husband of Kate Bosworth, actually one of the Sundance Award-winning director of Twin Falls, Idaho, and recently Force of Nature with Mel Gibson. This film is written by Josiah Nelson, is produced by The Daily Wire and Bonfire legend. The producers behind the S. Craig Zahler films, Run, Hide, Fight, Shut In, and a couple of other films we've talked about. The film follows a family of pioneers in the Montana wilderness plains as they defend themselves from a vicious gang of outlaws. So this is the big comeback vehicle for Gina Carano. She was the star of The Mandalorian. She tweeted some things that rubbed some people the wrong way. She was guilty of wrongthink. She lost her job on The Mandalorian, and she was scooped up by Bonfire legend, The Daily Wire, and this is like her big comeback vehicle. She was actually a producer on this film. She starred in the film. Yeah, what do we think about this one, guys? I'm sure you all loved it.
This
I will say, of the 3 Daily Wire films that I've seen, this is the one I've hated the least.
Oh, good. I mean,
I'm with you on that one.
We're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
This is one of the most mid movies I've ever seen. There's nothing particularly wrong about it, but there's absolutely nothing special about it either. This is one of the most streaming service movies I've ever seen. Like this is a movie. These are the kind of movies that were released when Netflix Canada was Netflix Canada. You'd be lucky to get one single Hollywood movie off there, and the rest are just boring mid-tier B movies. That's what this movie felt like to me. There's nothing particularly terrible about it, it's in focus, it sounds okay, there's lighting, but there's no interesting lighting, there's no interesting camera work, it's all just really bland and flat and mostly shaky cam. And the acting is like pretty good, mostly. I didn't like Gina Carano, but we'll get into that. But the characters are
I
so
will say the
one-dimensional and bland.
I'm going to push back on one thing. I think the cinematography was actually quite nice. That was one of the highlights for me.
Really?
I also think the cinematography was pretty good.
It was plain and simple, but it serviced the story perfectly well. And I do like how they, paced out some of the opening sequences and gave you a perfect like geological layout of the land that they're on with these wide shots. And I like the pacing of it as well. Like it felt um kind of relaxed. It wasn't rushed to get anywhere at first. So
Well,
I did
I mean,
I did enjoy the way the film opened in some sense. But anyway, you're gonna go on.
no, I mean, I was just gonna say, I mean, oh God, excuse me.
No worries.
I was going to, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I thought the cinematography was great. I thought the sound and
yeah,
you
the
know,
sound
audio
is probably
was.
the best part.
I mean, I thought on a technical level it was pretty good. I thought the acting was decent to good. Gina Carano, I thought, did a fantastic job. I'm going to push back on what you're saying a little bit. I will concede, though, the guy who played her husband, the cowboy
Yeah.
Cerrone, yeah, he was his performance was a little rough.
What?
And
I will fight
do.
you. He was the best actor in the movie. Like, hands
Oh,
down.
really?
I thought he was the best actor in the movie. Like, I felt like he actually tried, where Giancarlo was
felt
just
like his-
sleepwalking for the role.
I thought he was. I thought he was a little unpolished. I will say though that this was actually his
Unlike the
first.
director.
Oh,
Hey.
hey. I mean, this is actually his first role. He's coming from a background of UFC fighting as well.
I actually
thought
thought he was really good. Like,
good.
there was
I
a
mean,
scene where,
I
like,
don't.
he's talking to his wife and talking to Gina Carano, they're talking about potentially moving out this, moving back to the city. They don't like it out here, and like he's like trying to put emotion into his words, but every time Gina Carano speaks, it's like, "But I don't want to live here. I don't like it out here." It's like, come on, you're not even trying. It's like this guy's like pulling his, is doing his best, like he's giving it his all, and we're cutting back to a block of wood with AI generated NPC responses.
I disagree. I
I
thought
don't know,
she did
man.
well enough.
She was
I
terrible.
thought
I think she was a decent actor for being an MMA fighter. I mean,
I'll put it this way. I mean, you can make some complaints about her performance in those scenes, but I thought she genuinely did a good job with the scenes between her and the son. I thought there was some tender moments there that I thought were well earned emotional beats.
That's what I wrote verbatim.
Yes, well, I'm agreeing with you.
What is happening?
So okay, I was just looking back at what my live react. So I watched this, and to give myself some accountability, I decided to do some live reactions that were all spoiler tagged. And I literally wrote, there are some genuinely, nice tender moments between the mother and son that almost make this house exist and look idyllic.
No, I mean, and I agree with you. I think that those scenes really pull a lot of emotional weight, and I feel like she does a good job with them.
I don't know.
I'd also argue.
I felt like the kid was a better actor than her.
Yeah, but, I mean, but
I wouldn't disagree.
Women, so
he is actually a pretty good actor. The child actor is pretty good, though. You guys got to agree on that at least.
Yeah, but I mean, but you hate women, so no.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kirsten Dunst was disappointing.
Don't hate on my waifu like that. This is
right.
That time.
No, and I mean, I thought Nick Searcy, who plays the preacher villain, I thought he was pretty good. I feel like if I were to give some constructive criticism, and I think this is the only thing that I could really, because like you guys said, I mean, it's very serviceable in a lot of ways, and it's also pretty good in a lot of ways. But I think this is the one thing, and I feel like they did a film prior to this called Shut In with Vincent Gallo.
Oh yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah, no, and here's the thing about that film. That film was actually made available free on YouTube. But I feel like what Shut In
It's
has
the only
that this
reason I watched it.
well, I feel like what Shut In has that this film doesn't have, and I think it needs, is like Shut In for the most part is a very like I mean I enjoyed it. It's a fun little contained thriller. It feels like a grindhouse sort of B movie panic room, but it has Vincent Gallo as like the centerpiece. And I feel like this needed not necessarily Vincent Gallo, but I feel like it needed someone to be the centerpiece. Like I feel like if Nick Searcy was like the preacher villain guy, I feel like if he was like a Mel Gibson or a James Woods or something, I
Yeah,
feel
just
like
someone
this
with a lot
film
of personality.
I feel like this would come together a lot better. And like I don't think anyone was particularly bad. I actually think a lot of people were great in this, but they weren't like necessarily standout, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like this needed a
I
standout. And
Well, there was one moment that really stood out for me, and that's how Gina unnecessarily escalated the situation.
Yeah. Like
well, I mean,
she's so stupid. Like she's just like, okay, these guys are clearly killers. I got a great idea. Instead of playing it cool like I probably should and not put my kids in danger, I'm gonna pull a gun on them. What the fuck is wrong with you? I get you're from the city, but what the fuck? I was so
what
angry
we
at
need,
that. That was the only
Ian,
time the
we
film
Find
made me
killers
feel
in my
something.
house, and I will threaten to kill you if you don't
Yeah,
leave.
all of these armed people with my kid and my
well, I mean,
baby in the
They have
house.
they have a
Ian,
yeah.
we needed the movie to happen. That's why.
That's the only
Did
reason
we
that scene
though?
happens.
Did we really?
Yeah,
That's
go,
what.
Well,
you could have written around that. You could have written around that, like she saw the scalps and the preacher like realized that, and maybe he acted on it. Like I would have bought it more if like he instigated the fight somehow. But no, she 100% puts her kid in
Well,
danger. That's the only time this
they,
film made me
I
feel
will
something
say,
was when I was mad.
he was being really creepy with the like if he was being real creepy with the kids like he was being like holding the baby and she well first of all why would you let these strangers into your house in the first place like you offered them water and then say
That's
hey you're
like
gonna
a
make them breakfast
Western
okay
thing, I
it's
think.
it's like
Yeah.
Western Southern courtesy whatever like that's fine but there wasn't any clear and present danger they didn't want to harm her I guess ultimately they were planning on waiting for the husband but that doesn't quite check out either
Yeah.
I think it just seemed like
no,
things
I mean,
escalated and a shootout happened because she got uh, not necessarily trigger happy, but she suddenly just felt like that motherly instinct kind of kick in. But I think it
It
kicked in
wasn't
at the
earned.
wrong time.
Yeah, it wasn't
well, I
earned
mean,
in any ways. But I
I
feel
do
like
think
he should have instigated the fight, and because like it, even if they do want to kill you, why would you fuck around like that? You're basically in a hostage situation. Like, and the key
well,
ingredient to solving a hostage situation is to not instigate the bad guys. Like, it just. I also don't buy that her character would do that. Like, one thing I kind of liked was that like she wasn't all that great at fighting. She wasn't like all that smart in dealing with rodents and stuff like that. She kind of had to. She wasn't like invincible badass, which I actually kind of
It wasn't a
appreciated.
rodent, it was a snake, and I wondered how is a snake up in the winter? I mean, yeah, they're in
well,
a
I
There's
warm
mean,
snakes in the
cabin,
winter, I
but
think.
it's
yeah,
winter though.
Yeah, there's
it's
No,
snakes in the winter.
Montana.
I
It's
thought they
always
hibernate.
winter. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
well, where do you think they gotta hibernate? In a warm house. I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that was kind of weird too.
no, I
I
mean,
like how they used the real
But,
snake.
but also I put this was okay. Admittedly, this is very nitpicky, but I just wanted to read some of the reactions that I had. So she uses this axe to open the fireplace because I guess they don't have any other tools, but she wants to open up a hot fireplace, and then she finds a snake that creeps up on like the basket. Um, you hear the Metal Gear solid alert noise, and then she picks up the basket. Okay, good. That's smart. She doesn't use the axe that was established 2 seconds ago as like a Chekhov's gun. She just pulls the gun off the rack that we haven't seen yet. She points it at the snake, and is like trying to look away as if she doesn't want to see where she's aiming. And then her husband shows up home anyway and kills it with the butt of his gun. And I'm like, you could have used the axe. I don't know. Maybe it was a small
well,
handheld axe, but
he took the gun away from her
Yeah,
because he
that's
was like,
mainly
no,
what he
no,
wants to do. Well, and I kind of like
Yeah,
that actually, because it showed like she didn't know like how to deal with things properly out in the wilderness. Like I didn't mind that so much. It was just instigating the
Sure.
fight didn't seem in character to me.
It
Like you feel
I
like she
just
feel
tried to
felt
like
like a
avoid as much
failure
as
of
possible.
Chekhov's gun or axe in this
Yeah,
case.
it
Chekhov's
just
act.
and the main reason I'm talking about that scene so
Check
much is
this
because I
ass.
can't remember any other scene in this movie. Like I'm sorry, like I saw this yesterday and I can barely remember it. It's just so forgettable for
I'm
me.
remembering because I'm reading my live reactions.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I
You're reading
mean,
your notes.
here's the thing. I mean, I almost feel like what the Daily Wire, is doing. I feel like it
Theoretically and
may
hypothetically.
theoretically and hypothetically, yes. I feel like what they're doing is almost a disservice in a way, in that these films are not like if I told you, like if you've been living under a rock for the last 5 years, and I said, okay, so Ben Shapiro has a,
Ben?
a streaming service, your immediate thought would be like, oh my God, it's probably like, God's Not Dead level stuff. Like, and it's
Oh
not.
yeah.
These films are not. They're really just
Blah.
kind of grindhouse. They're very grounded. They're very like B movie, very like grindhouse. They're coming from the same school of thought as like Zaylor, but not quite.
Well,
And
this is my issue with these movies is that they pretend they don't have an agenda, when they clearly do, or at least that's what the Daily Wire marketing is like
Well, I don't
leading
think
well,
this
into.
movie
So
really has
I
an
remember,
agenda.
so I was there for the shut-in live stream.
Devin, you cut out
Oh,
there.
hey, doing buddy. The stream didn't cut out just now because you jumped out of the thing, did you?
No. It cut
Okay,
out a little
good.
bit, but I didn't. It's not because I jumped out, but it's just
All right, so
hiccup.
here's the
so,
thing. So I was there for the shut-in live stream, and I remember just seeing this like talking head introduce the film and come into it during the end credits, and he's adding his button of what they want me to take away from this, assuming I'm a Daily Wire subscriber. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. I'm just trying to enjoy the movie, you know?
well, I
Like
mean,
I don't give a fuck what you have to what you want me to think about it. Um,
well, and
but I do feel like these movies should own up a little bit more to what they're trying to say. Like they're trying to be a little more subdued and subtle with what their ideological slant is and hide it under kind of a genre film. Like they very subtly imply there's this bit of dialogue that Gina delivers without much emotional weight. It's just sort of there. But it was something to the effect of like her husband was fighting for the wrong side, and when you realize you're fighting for the wrong side, there's no shame in turning back on it's something to that effect. And I'm like, that's like the message of the movie, but they're just trying to sneak it in there in between the action just to
Uh,
you know, and hopefully I
well,
miss it,
and
but
I don't
I
know
did.
if
and
I feel like you're reading a bit too far into it because then
I
that
do
means
too.
the
Maybe.
film would
Yeah.
have something to say and it would have some merit beyond just being
Oh
really
Well,
God.
mid.
No, I mean
it did
here's the
say it, but it didn't say it with much conviction because I think
here's
they realized that if
Yeah,
they said it too loudly, people would veer off.
yeah, but just ironic.
well, I mean here's where I'm at with it. It's like these are for the most part genre films, and I think for the most part, maybe with the exception of like Run, Hide, Fight, which we talked about also,
Oh fuck
it's like
that movie.
That
I
movie's
feel like these
hilarious. I'd rather watch
no,
that movie.
I feel like these films are stuff that you could find on Amazon Prime or you could find on Netflix. And I feel like they're marketing them as like it's just a genre film for like people who are sick of politics and like woke,
Yeah,
messaging or whatever. But then you go to the Daily
Right,
Wire
Hollywood.
to well, yeah, no, but you go to the Daily Wire website and it's like I have to look at Ben Shapiro's face. I mean, if I ordered a
Theoretically and
what
hypothetically,
yeah, well, you order a
or literally.
subscription and it tries to offer you like a free leftist tears tumbler. Like
it's like I'm not
and
there for that. I'm there to watch the movie, and these movies are just
right,
kind of meh. They're kind of
It's
average.
they're not
prescribing an ideology for me to follow just
no,
to
and I
watch a
mean
fucking genre western. You know,
Yeah, I
well,
know.
I don't give a shit.
it's not even that the movie's meh. It's just like you can't say that something is an apolitical piece of content when it's wrapped in like political advertising in a way. It's not even coming from the film itself. It's coming from the way that they're marketing
Yeah, it does do a
and I feel like
disservice.
that
Yeah.
I feel like that almost turns people off. And I mean, critics have now like refused to review these films. It's like a whole thing. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like there is a market for this. And I hope that, you know, this is like maybe a step in the direction of where they can like continue to succeed in a way. I mean, I feel like if people want this is not a bad movie. It's not like it's not poorly made. You can't really like if I showed it to you out of context, if I sent you a copy of it that wasn't linked to the Daily Wire, like wasn't linked to Ben Shapiro or whatever, and you liked westerns and you liked genre films, I think you'd probably have a good time with it. But
Yeah.
I feel like it
I
turns
mean,
people off that it's so connected to that sort of particular ideology, and I feel like that's a very fine line that they're walking.
Yeah.
you know, it's I don't advocate for piracy publicly, especially on this podcast, but in this case,
well,
well, here's it,
anyway,
that. Yeah, that kind of thing
theoretically and
happens.
hypothetically,
Yeah.
it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
well,
That kind of thing happens all the time, Steven. I agree 100% because this happens with video games too, where I think it was Subnautica that had like the devs like going off about like how anti-gun they are, and like all of the like a bunch of politicians or people that believe in gun rights are just like, well, I'm not gonna play the game now. I refuse to review it or even play it. There are actual game critics who refuse to play it because of that. And it's just it does such a huge disservice that somebody involved has to be an idiot because that goes against like all of the hard work that went into like making the movie or making the video game just because like somebody decided to put themselves out there or present something the wrong way just to get their views across. Like it's really
no,
disappointing.
I mean, well, and that too. I mean, it's like that's the other thing. It's like I think if people gave this a chance outside of the sort of like pre-packaging that's coming with this, I think they'd probably enjoy it.
Well,
Nine
they'd
times
enjoy
out
it.
of
And
Well,
10.
on me.
yeah, and that's one
Yeah,
thing I like about like the streaming service, if nothing else, is that I did give this film a chance. Like I'm with Roger Ebert where he says like every film deserves its day in court. Like any film deserves its day in
absolutely.
court. I don't know if
All
people like
we
it.
are
Yeah,
saying is
Well,
give
you know,
this
I mean,
film a chance.
chance. Oh,
I do agree with you though. I mean, that was like a huge thing where you had recommended me the video game Disco Elysium,
yeah.
and I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, "Yeah, this friend of mine recommended it," and he was like, "Oh, you know that game was, created by a bunch of communists."
Well, they aren't
What?
communists. They jokingly thanked Karl Marx and like getting their game award, but that was clearly a joke. Like that was very
But
clearly a joke.
I mean, but
And the
that's
thing
what I'm
is,
saying.
yeah.
I mean, it could just be like a fun RPG where this is like a fun Western,
Mhm.
but it's like it's coming in that packaging. And
Yeah,
I think
and people go in
I
with
think
a
it
certain
does.
mindset because
I
of
think
that.
it does turn people off, yeah, and I think that's unfortunate
shame.
because honestly, I did have a good time with this film. I did enjoy it. I thought it
I
was
didn't
well
hate it
done for
as
what
much
it
as I
was.
thought it would. I'll give it that.
As a
I
fan
did
of
make an early
Western,
John in my I did make a joke early on in my reactions, which was kind of making fun of people who really get off to these movies.
yeah,
These like the first line of dialogue after a couple opening shots is the guy quoting the Bible while kicking the shit out of a dude. I could only get so erect.
well, I mean, Pulp Fiction, something. Anyway, yeah, I mean, as a fan of westerns, as a fan of genre films, I had a good time with it. I thought, I mean, there's nothing really that I can complain about. It's very contained. It's a breezy runtime. It's violent. It's brutal. It's funny. I mean, there's one scene that got a legitimate laugh out of me where the guy pushes the prostitute into the dirt.
Yeah.
And I was watching that thinking, well, that was rude. She also, she's just doing her job. Like,
Why are you
there
blowing
was
up her
nothing-
spot, man?
you know what? And I saw that as a waste of moment for him to have some clever dialogue and to show some character, but it's like, "Ugh, get off me, whore."
That was kind
You
of
know,
funny.
that's all it was. You
I
know,
was waiting for like the
I
Sigma
have a
male
wife.
music.
All right.
You know,
Biggest
Reject females, acquire currency. Um,
ratings time.
just like I
yeah,
think you know what mine is.
Oh, come on.
you've given every film.
Give this
that
something
score.
different.
I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I think it was great. I had a good time with it. I can't really complain. It's did what it set out to do.
Hey,
It was a
that's
prairie,
fine. I can complain.
there was
I can do all the complaining
it
for
was
you.
it was it was a prairie, and there was terrible things that happened. So I feel it accomplished what it set out to do.
Nice.
I feel like the Daily Wire is living on a prairie, trying to get this film, out there and get people to subscribe. They didn't hook me yet, so that's 1 point
Wow.
for me. I didn't pay them a cent.
What?
What's your rating?
It's a 6.9.
Oh, come on.
Oh, god damn.
What? All right.
we have
So
a
my
6.9
rating.
and 8 and
5 out of 10. Like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, but
God.
there's absolutely just nothing stand out about this movie whatsoever. I feel like
I disagree.
I'm
mean,
gonna
you were talking about.
I'm gonna
you-
forget about this movie in T-1 day. Yeah, I already forgot.
I mean, I will say this. You were talking about the cinematography. I would argue there's actually some great use of Steadicam, where they're tracking her across the kitchen, and she grabs the shotgun shells, and then everybody
But it felt
is
like
praying.
really awkward. Like everyone was just running
I
through.
thought
It
it
didn't
worked, and
feel
you know
natural.
what?
Yeah.
I'd also argue. I mean, Gabriel Kane Day-Lewis, who is the son of Daniel Day-Lewis and Isabella Adjani, was in this film. I thought he
What?
was pretty good.
He was good. I didn't know
Yeah.
that's who he was. Holy shit.
Yes, that's who he was.
Also, yeah, talk about
Hey,
a couple with
automatically
very
this
beautiful
movie's
genes.
a 10 out of 10 Kino just for him being in there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're
No,
updating your score now.
No, I don't mean that at all.
No.
There
Too
was one
late.
shot that I thought was great. So there's a shot where she's looking into the mirror that has this like shotgun blast in it, and it reminded me of when Shrek looked into a mirror and it cracked.
Wow.
And I'm like,
That-
that's a Kino parallel right there.
I mean,
Oh, okay,
anyway.
Mister. There was a Finding Nemo reference in Drive.
Okay. Well, I mean.
Anyways,
no, I was more making fun of the fact that I only knew Albert Brooks from Finding Nemo. that was more my point.
You didn't know from Taxi Driver?
Oh, he was in Taxi
Yeah.
Driver. Shit. Yeah. Okay. I mean, in fairness,
Put your glasses
I saw
on, all right?
I did find Finding Nemo before I saw Taxi Driver.
Fair. I mean, what? You didn't watch Taxi Driver when you were 6? Come on, man.
No, it's funny. Finding Nemo was actually one of the first films I saw in theaters.
No shit.
Yeah,
Lost
it
Road
was.
Jurassic Park for me.
Even funnier is the fact that my mom wound up taking me like 10 minutes late so that I didn't get scared by the part where Nemo's mom dies.
That is a pretty hardcore
No.
scene for a kids movie.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That's
And
very
for
thoughtful
years-
of her.
For years, I thought like, man, I wonder what happened to her because we came in. Like,
And then you
10
watched
minutes
it, you're
late.
like, oh my god.
No, she really, she helped me dodge a bullet on that one. So,
Yeah. So,
Anyway,
Oh,
this has
I
been
thought it was just
a,
being for taking you there late.
this
This
has
has
been a
been-
fantastic episode, boys.
yeah, this was a fun
Tune
discussion.
Tune in next week. It's July 14th, and we're going to the
It's
beach.
not July 14th. Next week is July 8th.
Oh, July 8th. Okay,
No, sorry,
well,
7th. July 7th. My bad.
Oh, July 7th.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
What's
next
a calendar?
All right, so next
Well, what-
Thursday is my
Yeah, there you
episode. It's Shark Week. Wah, because July is the
Wah.
month of
Great
sharks.
segue
So-
from Finding Nemo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's set
I'm-
up, payoff.
I'm only somewhat salty that we haven't done a Canadian special where we could, contemplate all the native genocide. Oh, I didn't even get to the natives in this movie. They were there in like one scene, and I have
I
kind of a
mean,
whole
they served their well, they served their purpose. I mean, and I didn't think they were disrespectful
what
about it.
purpose do they serve? This is what I'm
To give her
wondering.
the
What purpose do
knife
they serve
I
that
mean,
there?
she could
doesn't
use later.
They give her
Plot
they did
device.
give her the knife. Yeah.
A plot
They,
device.
they give her the knife, but they also inconvenience her by having a woman like scream hysterically as she needs to get her leg sutured. Which, first of all, how come they don't have a method of doing that? And also she seems like inconvenienced that she's bled on by this hysterical woman. I don't know. The view of the native people in here was kind of no.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't
didn't
think
think
it
it
was
was
disrespectful.
And
It was pointless, but
I
it
don't
wasn't
think it was
disrespectful.
disrespectful.
It was just pointless. Like it's like you cut that scene on the movie and
it
nothing
could have been better.
changes. Yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
I mean, yeah.
so celebrating next week with Shark Week, we are doing Jaws, Deep Blue Sea, and Shark Attack Free Megalodon, the infamous cult classic. That movie is a wild ride. I am so excited for you to watch that movie, Devin. Oh, it's
It's
something
like
special.
Speaking of disrespectful
Cinema,
portrayals of a marginalized species that has been on this planet longer than we have.
Wow. Well, and after that,
goddamn.
after
that,
we'll
Devin, what's your episode after that?
Oh, wait, is it the Evangelion or Multiverse?
Multiverse.
It's the multiverse with everything.
Multiverse
everywhere.
of Chadness. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I cannot wait to talk about that one.
Yeah, so stay tuned
And
these
Mr.
next
Nobody
2 weeks.
and Cloud
yeah,
Atlas.
and again, send me those horror movies. We got to get those ready for Horror from a Hat, our 2 episodes in October. It's been real, guys, but now's the time where I hit the old dusty trail. Good night,
Right
everyone.
off into the